Waiting for this is on. Dave is on.
I am on.
We just see his name, no picture of Dave there. All righty, let's call this meeting, i.e. the Engineering Committee today, April 12th, 2022. Oh.
Here.
Robert's here. Any public comments today? No. All right, we're gonna jump into business, huh? Okay, C, minutes, approval of March 8th. 2 minutes, any comments, changes, anything of that nature?
No, I
Jeff?
don't have anything.
Okay, then these so are approved. Thank you. And smartly into Sandia Creek via the Caro culvert repair project. Is that you, Mr.
That
Stein?
would be me, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So basically, as we know, last month, everything's been completed. There's only one final step in this project, and I just file a notice of completion with the county. That's just the final step, is just to give you a little insight in the process. Basically, the first thing you do when you start a new project is you have to set up a DIR number and go to the county and let them know that hey, we're starting a new project, and just makes them aware of what's going on in the county project. So that's the project number on there, and so now you have to file this notice of completion. And then I did put together, there'll be a staff report. I'm not sure if that was printed out with this one, but that'll be going to the board. I know I sent that over to Jessica. Yeah.
Yeah. It was
So
fantastic.
that's all, yeah, but it's basically just saying the project is complete. There's nothing fancy at all. It's a standard letter where I changed the project name and the dates that are
Right.
completed. And what this allows now is we keep a 5% retention on all the projects. So when we invoice the contractors, it's 5% held back. Now, 35 days after we file this notice of completion, that's when we can go ahead and give them that last payment. And that's basically just a safety, just in case something went wrong or anything goes wrong in between. We're not expecting that, of course. It's
Right.
but everything seems to be going well. So yeah, once that's all complete, we will give them the last payment, and then we'll be done with this project completely. And everything is great. So yeah, a long time coming, but yeah, so notice of completion is always a good news, especially when
Yes.
the project went involved.
Very good.
But that's basically it for Sandia Creek. It's maybe the last time I talk about it.
That's right.
Next week. Or
Yeah, yes,
that should be it. Okay.
Here.
Okay, very good. All righty. Now moving on to Buena Vista. Is that going to also be?
That is going to be, yeah. So for Buena Vista, we've had a lot of activity, I guess, in the last month. So the first thing we'll talk about is the environmental permitting. We'll start with that. So on April 1st, we received the permit from the Regional Water Board. So that was one of the first steps. They're always one of the first ones to respond. So we did receive that permit. That's one of the three. So we're still waiting for the Army Corps and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. So the next one for CDFW, the fishing game, basically they deemed the application complete back in January. So there's usually they have a 30-day timeline for that deeming complete, which that ended on February 23rd. And then moving on, there's 60 days where they can review the permit. They're so swamped right now. Last time we didn't get anything until the last day, and they just said good to go, basically. So we're assuming the same thing's going to happen, but at that time they can give us comments or they can give us a permit, basically. And as we said in the past experience, because of all our preliminary work, we're expecting that we can get this right away. So the last date on that is going to be the end of April, around April 24th. Is when we are expecting some kind of response from them on that. So hopefully, fingers crossed, everything goes well with that. But again, we've had luck with them in the past because of all the work we did, the initial work we've done with them. So we're reaching out to them and making sure that we're keeping on top of the queue. Now the last one, the Army Corps, that's where we've had basically a lot of activity, and the Army Corps, as you can imagine, is fairly slammed right now. COVID, of course, is backing everything up. So the good thing about the Army Corps is their verdict usually falls in line with the Regional Water Board. And since we've already received that, we're fairly confident that they're going to fall in line. They're just going to go with the board's approval because it's both about federal waters. So we're good. That's a good thing. There's one thing. They did send an email out basically. So they've been experiencing delays in some tribal consultation, which is something they do on all the projects. I guess that all the agencies are backed up, and it's just what we've been dealing with. the unfortunate truth of it all, but we've been following up with them weekly just to get the status update on that one, but we're not, they were having trouble reaching out to all the tribes, so I guess they're also backed up. So we're expecting there's been a little delay on that. I know we're hoping end of April on that, but it looks like they couldn't get a hold of them, but it looks like maybe they were able to get a hold of them. And now they started that ticking clock with them, which we're expecting that to end around mid-May. And the chances are we're expecting an appointment shortly thereafter from that. Again, these environmental people, they live in a different world than everything else. So they're real busy, but we just go with what we've been told. So we're still expecting, sometime in that period around May. But that's, we're still working towards that, but we don't know the exact date of when that goes. But I do have I've been reaching out to them, me and Rincon, our self-consultant, and I'm seeing if we can go up a little higher because the delay is none of our fault. It's just they're not able to get a hold of the right people, which I don't think we should be penalized for that. So that's why I'm trying to bring up the chain as best I can. But we're moving that forward as best as we can, basically on that. But yes, there is a little bit.
I talked to Tyrone last night. Tyrone's he and I guess Dave now,
Okay.
boss. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm making a few calls to contacts.
Okay,
Like he knows the general and Army Corps of Engineers or whatever. He's a
great.
call. Because all these things are just dragging,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you don't get any answer.
Mhm.
So
The agency approvals were parallel processes, right? Different agencies all doing it at the same time,
That's correct.
or they
yeah, correct.
basically get started at the same time. And then,
Yeah.
do you ever see a case where a rejection by one agency forces a review by another one?
Not that, so they are parallel, but they're on their own entity. So CDFW is completely, that's all state of California. So they're kind of a different agency. They're completely different from the state. So CDFW will not have any impact on that. But the reason Regional Water and the Army Corps are tied together is because they're both federal.
Yeah.
So the good thing about the Army Corps is they fall in line with the regional board. They don't really have the resources to be doing all the regional type reviews. So that's why they usually rely on the regional board. But there's more hoops to go through with the Army Corps, and honestly, they're just slower. They're just more bogged down. I think there's only 2 reviewers for this whole Southern California area. So that explains kind of why everything's kind of backed up. But it's something that needs to be done, of course. So that's where we're going.
In the question, you said rejection, and this is something that is different in this process. I've never heard of rejection. What happens? They come back with conditions,
Yeah, okay.
and they call it mitigation. So you can we need 7. You can have 6 of wide open approvals, and then 1 and we were talking about this.
Yeah.
I'm a little nervous about the Indian tribes.
Okay.
I did not know that somehow Corps of Engineers, Federal Corps of Engineers, was having their approvals tied now to Indian tribe approvals. Now, if you think about this, okay, this is a washout of a road 45 years ago, pipes were in there. I mean, if the Indian tribes wanted to go looking around for artifacts or whatever, that was the time.
Right,
Okay, when they built the thing.
right.
We're just putting it
Yeah,
back where it was.
right.
So,
Interesting.
so that's how I got in with Tyrone, because I raised the question.
Uh-huh.
What are these guys looking for? And how many tribes?
What are we talking about? Right.
Yeah, because my experience in this regard is it's kind of a money sort of thing.
Okay,
We come out and pay us $50,000 and we'll make sure that you don't approve artifacts, or
Uh-huh.
whatever. So the city or district, whoever writes the check to the tribe, and then away you go. But again, mitigation, right? So that's what's kind of started this. We were talking, I said, what? Hold the phone here, And so now it's like, because it's federal, somehow all the tribes have now
have to
gotten
be, yeah.
part of the Army Corps.
Right.
Was that true during the Sandia Creek and Beaver Carroll?
That was gonna be my next thing, so and that's something to ease your mind, is we did go through this process, it was a little smoother, for the Army Corps, but there was no impact from the tribe, basically, they looked at it and it was an open and shut case, just right now, they're just even more back down, so,
Okay,
it's down the street, so it should be, we're expecting a similar thing, but you never know what they could have said.
but fairly
Area to area.
one representative that you're dealing with. You're not dealing with multiple. Okay,
Yeah. So it's one guy that, project manager of Army Corps, his name is Tony Antonio. He was not very responsive in the beginning, but I guess he was on a 1 month long field assignment and so it was just, one of those things, but now he's, responded to every email, it's been a day now, so that means that project's in the queue and it's right at the top there, so that's the good thing. Is he has become a lot more responsive and, he's doing everything he can, so we'll keep on there basically and just, come back and forth and just,
Yeah.
we have that weekly reminder, we just send an email, shoot him a call, just say, hey, we're waiting on this, and again, if we need to escalate it, as everyone has those options, so, that's something we can definitely have.
remind me, Jim, how long has this been in terms of Buena Vista? When,
Well, the washout was before I came, so I've been here 4.5
Yeah,
years.
you're going on 5.
Was it the same event as the one that took out
6 years,
Sandia
I
Creek?
think.
Was it the same weather event that took out Sandia?
I don't believe
No.
so.
No,
Yeah.
19 year, 2 before it wiped
Yeah.
out. See, there was damage, okay, look,
Yeah.
Buena Vista and Sandia Creek ran parallel, so I think the storm was 16.
Okay,
But Sandia was not washed out, so, they made a few little repairs to it, and then away we wrote Sandia Creek. This was completely washed out. When I came, they were making applications to FEMA, and FEMA turned it down.
right. I remember that.
And it was because you could see the pipes, that were blown out down in the canyon. But even from, the washout, you could see corrosion. And so the FEMA inspectors said, failure to maintain,
Maintain, right.
we will.
That's why they threw it
And
at you.
then the board and the staff at that time kept appealing. They never actually had an open FEMA case. The action that's we refer to involving FEMA and Buena Vista was appealing the decision to reject our application. So they never paid one time. Never. So that we had to do some research just where you came on the board about that, because they were making an issue of it. But we were in FEMA, we didn't, pass our appeal or whatever. Can't compare it to the FEMA appeal we just
Right,
completed,
right.
because that was over a project that, had been actually done. The prior Buena Vista was, we put in an application, they came out, inspected, rejected it.
Right.
So.
I
So-
remember that.
So that's what, we
Okay.
held it up a couple of years because they kept going through the appeal of that process, hoping to get FEMA money. And you can't start a job, once you start it, you can't get FEMA money. So it was delayed. And then this process, how long you been working on this? Year and a half, 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, we had the bid, we worked on the plan at least a year and a half, 2 years ago, and we had the bid opening on July 8th. So I'm trying to think, I think it's coming 3 months going through that process. I would say it's at least over a year.
Yeah,
I think I
There's
was
no delays done with respect to the cost of the project.
So that'll be, I guess that's rolling into my next one. If we wanted to move on past environmental, I can move
Yeah.
on to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so basically, because we're getting closer, we reached out to the contractor. This was about 2 weeks ago. We reached out to them and just to follow up that, hey, I think we need to get these permits sometime soon. We're getting close, so let's make sure we're all good. So we reached out to them. So the bid prices were only good for 180 days. So, and as you know, the market's been really volatile right now. We talked about this. It's actually been since about 278 days since the bid opening. So we're well past that 180-day limit that we had in the contract. So basically, we called him up and he said, well, you know, we'll see what we can do, but, I think we're gonna need to, you know, renegotiate this, a little bit, just to get the current prices. So we reached out, I did an analysis basically to see, you know, what would be a reasonable cost if they were to upgrade, and, Caltrans has something called a construction cost index, which shows that prices were a certain amount, in, let's say, July of 2021, which is when we bid this project. And now the prices are a certain amount higher in April 2022. So that index came out to about 1.13, meaning it's right now we're about 13% higher in cost. So the original bid was $425,108.40. After I added that 13%, it comes out to about $55,000 more is what it would be, which is about $480,000. So if they adjusted it strictly based on that Caltrans cost index, that's what it would be for kind of yearly increases. But again, that's a Caltrans blanket. So Caltrans is mostly just asphalt roadway and everything. There are some storm drains, but this is a probably specific one. So I reached out to the contractor and they just said, hey, give me the ballpark number of what we're thinking this is going to increase. He came back and said, after a week later, he came back and said he reached out to the pipe manufacturers to get what the price would be now and everything. Because pipe is one of the biggest items. There's also borrow sites to get the the giant hole right now. They need to bring all that dirt in. So he reached out and it looks like it's going to be about 75 to 100K more than the original bid then. So it's a little bit above the Caltrans. I wouldn't say without reason, but right now we're looking at steel prices going up 200%, plastic pipe prices 150%. So I wouldn't say necessarily without reason. And the biggest thing we need to look at here is we bid this project. He was a low bid, and I went back and looked at our bid results. The second lowest bidder came in about 120K more, and it was 544,000. So even if he does add that 75 to 100K, he's still lower than that second bid from their July 2021 price. So, we're still getting the project cheaper than the next bidder. So that leads me to what the two options would be. So of course we can renegotiate with this contractor, or if we decided that this was completely outlandish and he was trying to strong arm us into just getting an exclusive price, we could rebid the project. Now that's with a word of caution. I would highly advise against rebidding because of the prices right now. I would doubt that we will get
Up for an open window there.
Not only will we lose 2 months if we go to bid, there'll be, admin costs on re-advertising the project. And there's just a lot of other factors that would go into that. And we already have a bid that's lower than our second bid a year later.
Does he, or did you ask him whether he expects to be able to meet the original schedules as far as time of?
Schedule wouldn't change. The big thing is pipe lead time. So, and that kind of rolls into another thing that we can do. So, because of how the uncertainty with all this pipe and everything, last time we were waiting on pipe for San Diego Creek, that kind of slowed the schedule down. So what I think, and again, this is something we'd have to authorize and, go through the proper, but if the district allows them to buy the pipe now and start, that basically will start the project. It won't start the schedule. They'll still have the same amount of contract time, but if they get this pipe secured and on site, they can't come back to us and say the pipe prices have increased. They can't come back to us saying.
Does that have an impact on the relationship to all of the agency approvals?
Oh, no, no, it doesn't, it's not really considered starting work because we're not mobilizing on there. So we would have to, it would just be, it's called a procurement period basically. So because pipe has this 1 month long lead time, at least if we get it on the books, we can get everything going. The only thing that impacts the environmental would be moving dirt.
So that's interesting. Chuck's got this process figured out. If this were a FEMA job, that would be a big
Yeah.
mess.
Yeah.
Because we're starting early,
Yeah.
for all the approvals.
Yeah.
But since this is our job, and it's not dirt, so there's
Yeah,
nothing
yeah.
environmental about it.
Right.
The other question, because what we've been going around with all 24 hours, I guess, just kind of, because, let's set a date. I wanted something to come back here today and say, we're starting, because then I heard about the Indian yesterday. What else?
Yeah.
Stuff we do.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a really valid question, because if this were
Sure.
a FEMA job, wow, that would really be
Yeah.
doing something.
And it'd be a whole different ballgame.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
This, some of my questions to them yesterday were, so what's the difference between the second low bid and what they bid? Because if we do something that isn't, oil, which we shouldn't do anyway, but like who can complain? Well, the person who, let's assume that one guy bid 200 and the other guy bid 100. And then we go through another process, which we can take to the board and say, okay, the cost of pipe has gone from, he has $100,000 to 225. So let's just amend the low bid. So the second lowest bidder at 200 could object. Okay. Now, whether you would go with the objection or not, that's another issue. But anyway, when the prices came out this morning, the negotiated amount we're talking about right now is well below still.
Okay.
So you could take the low bid, accept the low bid, do a change order as
Right.
part of it, for let's say it's 72,000 or something like that. Take it to the board, have the board award the contract with change order number 1, making it at that price. It's still the low bid,
Right.
bidding previously, so we're totally in the clear.
Do we expose bid results at the end of a bid?
Yes, they know the price.
So the lowest bidder would know where his next target was.
Yeah. They actually, right here in this room, we slid them open and read, take it down. So, and that's the process, California law. So it sounds to me like we could get this project rolling now. Because that's what's gonna happen next. It's gonna come July 1, we're gonna get all our permits in hand.
Right, but we're not
And then
gonna have,
guess what? No pipe.
yeah, no, the materials, yeah,
Price of pipe, well, the risk would be,
yeah,
if you buy the pipe now, and then in July, the price drops. But I don't think that's gonna happen.
I don't
It's not likely, and the likelihood is that if we push the schedule out, other projects are going to
As
as well. We're working with 7% inflation right now.
So, that's gonna be the recommendation. Is it possible to finish these negotiations with the low bid? This is Southland, right?
Yes.
They do a lot of work there. So what if you just said, give me a price and we'll take it to the board, like next week? And get board approval,
yeah, I think so.
and then we're probably gonna have to advance funds on that change order number 1, like buy the pipe. But then we can have board write it up, right? So then Teresa would be able to write a check and then get this project going.
Does that put us at any risk if one of these agencies just simply doesn't act for the next year and a half?
Find an Indian cemetery in Arizona.
Oh, jeez.
So fingers crossed.
It'd be the first time.
Surprise.
Yeah, but that ties in, but one of my questions was, where do we put this pipe? And then it dawned on me, that whole section of road is closed. And we've got all that rock out there. So just put it there, unless they come with a crane and trucks.
This is a small pipe, we're talking 60-inch,
Yeah.
48-inch pipes. So.
Okay, but it's nothing that somebody can easily not walk away with, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying, but.
Well, you'd have to bring a crane and a big, large truck.
Well, you never know these days, I mean, you know.
Things have happened. But no, I guess the contractor would have a good way. It's in his best interest to secure the site. It's not going to be security out there, but he would have to secure, make it secure. And as far as risking the environmental, if the environmental were to go out, I mean, we need this pipe one way or another.
Right.
So
Yeah.
even if it does drag out, it's not like the pipe has a service value when it's not installed yet. So I would say no, there's no risk of even if it does get dragged out even further, You know, it's not the ideal situation. You'd rather the contract start and get everything running, but you know, this is just.
If we fund the pipe ahead like this, like we're discussing, and for some reason, the contract isn't fulfilled because of some event, do we have ownership of that pipe or
Yes.
does it remain with them?
Yes, they would have to forfeit their contract, basically. They would have to default on their contract if they were to step away.
Well, I'm thinking about us defaulting along the lines of, suppose the Corps of Engineers
Yeah.
doesn't respond until a year from next April.
Mhm.
And so it goes beyond the period of performance for the contract. So we can't go forward with it. What I'm looking at is there any risk that we're going to have invested in that pipe and not have use of that pipe because we haven't been able to fulfill our portion of it?
I guess I'd have to look at the specific details of that, but I really don't see, risk right on first glance. That would happen.
Wouldn't the only risk be is you own the pipe?
Mm.
And this is like gold, it's going up in value.
Well, yeah.
So your
can always-
downside might be you have to sell
Sell
the
it,
pipe
right,
sometime in the
right.
future.
Yeah.
or
Where I was
what-
heading with that would be
Yeah.
if the payment wasn't specifically for the pipe, with the pipe coming to the ownership of the district,
Yes.
so that it was a prepayment and they could at some point in time argue that that was a payment against the entire contract that we didn't live up to. They had costs associated with that because we were planning on, you know, the sort of thing that lawyers get into. If we were at
Make
risk
sure
of
you're
having
buying
funded,
the
but not
pipe
having.
only, you're not buying 25% completion or anything
No,
like
we're just
that.
gonna be buying
Just material.
But like,
Just
you know what,
material.
we're assuming that we're gonna be buying the pipe and we're gonna advance money. That has not come up in the negotiation, has it?
No, that would have to be,
Because the way
guaranteed.
the spec is that they buy the pipe, and that's part of it.
Yes.
And just keep operating along. I think that would be the easy way, is, you know, you buy the pipe, this is the new contract. And see what they say, and we'll let you put it out there and start now and blah, 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 without having us pay for the pipe. I mean, we could, but it seems like that maybe complicates matters.
I don't think that they would go out and buy the pipe without
I was-
insurance. They're-
I was just gonna say, I
could ask, but
I agree
For the
with
same reason I'm concerned.
Yeah.
One of the ways that I've seen this handled in the government contract side of things is to provide what's called customer provided material, where we buy the pipe, it's our pipe.
Mhm.
We provide it to the contractor for use on the project.
Yes, and that would be district furnished. So that's, I guess, that is another way to do it. We are renegotiating. So if we said we provide the pipe, what would the price be? But then we would have to secure that pipe.
Right,
And
so
we would
that's
do the
right.
work.
Yeah.
We'd have to find someone that knew the right person. Again, I have a feeling it gets a better price than us.
Yeah, potentially a way to deal with that is just simply to tell them, what, you know, we don't know if we're going to get an approval in time for this, that we'd like to have you buy the pipe. We'd like to pay for it ahead of time so you don't have any risk, but we need to set a term in the contract that says that if the contract is terminated, we own that pipe.
Oh, yeah, and that's the case. And, I think it's definitely a great
We don't need
question to
more.
raise.
Oh,
No, but I definitely agree with that. So, yeah, I'll definitely, I'll look through the spec language, make sure that's all covered. And if it's not in this negotiation, we can set a term with that, to make sure. But it's my understanding that when, you know, if they buy something for the project, for the district.
Yeah.
It's the district pipe is essentially, but, I can double check our spec language to make sure that's all taken care of.
It doesn't sound to me like you can get this done in
Yeah,
3 days.
no, we're not.
So you're,
Yeah.
I think in the report and the marching orders from here, is that the committee thinks it's a good idea to proceed. You proceed, and then we'll probably put it on the day, both engineering. So you'll see, we'll be talking about, from today,
Right,
and then we'll put it on the agenda. I was shooting for next
Yeah.
week, but it's gonna
Yeah.
be too complicated.
Yeah.
So just keep, I think.
yeah,
just
proceed in terms of, yeah,
The negotiation.
Say to
Yeah.
the board, you guys want to just so they know that, you know,
right,
this is coming, this is kind of
Right.
the direction we're going in.
right. And just fundamentally what you just said to us in terms of the pricing and so on and so forth, and, yeah. And
So-
yeah,
So let me just make sure, are we talking about the full negotiation process is gonna be moved to May or just the pipe being ordered beforehand, I guess?
I don't think, okay, just negotiate with the contractor and we'll move toward, if there's board action, which there's gonna be of some sort, that will be in May. So you
right,
now have 5 weeks instead of 1 week.
right. You have the
Pull
time to
all
pull it
this
all together
together.
and then the languaging and so on and so forth, so.
Okay.
And report back to it's 4 weeks, you know, a month from today to these guys.
Yeah.
With all the results.
Yeah.
And then they can say, throw it on the board.
Okay, perfect, that makes perfect sense to me. Okay, thank you.
That'd be good.
Breathe.
Yeah, there we go.
That was right.
Hard to find. Hard to find nowadays.
Oh, we were getting a
Take
little
all the time you
excited.
need, just make sure it finishes when it should.
Yeah, yeah, right, right.
We're probably looking at July. Instead of the start. I'm being totally realistic.
Sure,
Sure. Because you don't know, we'll even have all your environmental for the baby. So,
Always up in the air.
and they're gonna need a month to get their cruising line and this and that, so.
that's a few more months. It's only been 26
Yeah.
days. So, what the heck? Okay, very good. All righty, we're gonna move on to the future roadway projects. Is that gonna be you, Mr. Stein, or
That is me
Mr.
as
Hunt?
well.
Okay,
Yeah, so, basically on that one, it's gonna be, last month I presented potential roadways that I was thinking of,
Mhm.
including, showed you what a $725,000 budget would look like.
Right.
And, after that discussion, we kind of said we wanted to take time to think about it. And I guess my question would be, were there any concerns with those roads or is
Yeah.
that something we can go ahead with?
well, I know I did a write about last week. Let me tell you, good thing I had somebody chauffeuring because I wouldn't be able to drive and look at the same time. So anyhow, I only had one area that I wanted clarification on, and that was Zone 1. And so I myself,
Sorry.
oh, that's
But,
okay.
you know,
Yeah, it's Del Mar, Vista Del Mar from Villa Los Ventos to the 1000s of Rio Linda. And fundamentally, wasn't really sure why we targeted that area because I felt, and even who was chauffeuring me around, which was Eddie Rodriguez. So Eddie knows these roads really well.
Mhm.
He and I, we went it around it a couple times to see, okay, what are we missing? And so I didn't notice any degree of degradation or any work that we need to have done.
He's got to tell you, that's why you put services out. You take a good product and you feel it, and let it say the good product. If you wait, then it deteriorates, then it costs you way, way more money.
Right, but in terms of the level of, I want to call it overall health, I mean, the good fair, where does it sit in that range? I mean, is it something that definitely needs to be done right away? I mean, is it something that's going to withstand another big storm like we had previously?
It's for rating on it.
That's what I'm trying to say, sort of is.
Okay,
And,
it is Del Mar from Villa Los Ventos to the 1000s of Rio Linda.
so that was, right,
That's real in
This here, right?
so yeah, so that was this portion right here, basically, so that one was in the poor condition according to our PCI data, which was given to us, so,
Okay.
That's how many years old?
this is from it was 2016, these PCIs, so it's 5 years.
5 years ago.
Okay, so 5 years ago?
So it should be in worse condition than that, but it's concerning that if you were driving, you would notice a poor condition road.
Mhm.
And of course, I was using this data was basically my go by and where we go, so what we can double check that. And-
Just double check it only because in other areas, driving over, visually, it may not look like it, but when you're driving over it, yeah, definitely you feel the difference.
Yeah,
And even as you're approaching the area and you're looking, you're seeing, okay, well, you already spot, evenness or whatever maybe going on in the road and then driving through it. And this particular section here, even from a distance, and wow, this looks pretty decent, this looks really good. And then driving over it, we felt the same way too. So, but that was the only one that jumped out at us.
And I guess, so I'll definitely double check that one to make sure that that data was, the best data to use. Again, it is from 2016, so something different could have happened. I had every project on here that I was fully aware of that it became, well, then came in, I think 2018 with the civil stuff, so,
Okay,
if there was something, maybe there was probably that
This
was
is
done.
Paver, which is nationwide, worldwide company. We are state of the art. 2 years after we did this, the countywide, hired paper. This is where they bring in a truck and they go over every,
Yeah,
so everything's filmed.
Right.
So Teresa has a computer or whatever, and you can see machine, it's a huge truck. And it just goes along and it tests the paper.
Sure.
And numerical rating.
right.
There's some reason that that's rated low,
Mhm.
okay,
Yeah.
engineering reason. But that's why you
Yeah.
can dig deeper. Maybe Dustin should go out too and look, from his perspective. And then you guys can do it from the engineering perspective. Why did that come up with such a number? Because I know what you're talking about. I look at Rosie.
Right, well, so it's just
You can't-
visually
you
and
don't know.
physically too, and we're in a truck
Yeah.
as well, so we're in a truck, driving through there, and then we went, and then we turned around and went back the opposite way again, so Eddie and I kind of looked at each other like.
Yeah.
"Don't-
Did
don't
that
get this
evaluation
ridiculous."
with the equipment you're talking about, take all of the roads of the district or just a?
Yes.
All
Every
All of
single
them.
mile.
Miles.
Yeah.
And there's a book. I mean, you could flip through and
Yeah,
find
right.
everything. And it's time to do this again. You're supposed to do it like every 5 years or so. It's been in excess of 5. Like when I came here, I knew about it, but I'd never had a payment management system like this.
Mhm.
That, I was blown away that Duluth had it.
Uh-huh.
And then it actually came up in the conversation, we're gonna have a little powwow, bring you up to speed on a couple of things. But I kind of got into it with the county transportation. I was to tell you about it. But one thing that came up is he said, your roads aren't up to our standards. And I said, well, isn't that interesting? Because we did our paper
Before you.
2 years before you, and our PCI is 2 points higher than yours.
You wanted to see it, yeah. That's what got you into trouble.
That's a fact you gotta carry around in your pocket for the one time you'll have an opportunity to use it.
It probably cuts against me, but.
Otherwise, it was quite an interesting travel. Because there's no reason for me to be going out in some of these certain areas there. I mean, there just really isn't. So Eddie and I, in fact, and I can't remember which road it was, we couldn't go all the way through because it was chain linked and it was a lot of dirt and rock and stuff. And so we had to do a complete
Yeah.
loop around to go around on the other
I've done that
side.
before.
Yeah, and the same thing there too. So we go, oh, okay. So we were kind of going around in circles on a couple of spots, but it made sense later on. So yes, it was quite an interesting little drive that we took. So, but that was the only area there. But along the way though, I did notice, and I asked Jim if code enforcement was going to be here next week because I did see at least a couple of sightly in the, little areas there. One looked like an old used car lot. I mean, a number of cars and another one with a big container on it and I don't know, miscellaneous pipes and stuff like that. So anyhow, it's off of Karancha, but I can't remember. And I'm gonna call Eddie. You know where it is?
It's right next to that street that is trimmed. It's yellow, is that?
Buena?
No, the one you asked me to trim up for the corner.
Oh, yeah, VS Yellow.
Yeah, it's right across from VS Yellow.
Okay.
Exactly the house. It's
Yeah,
got
yeah.
quite a few cars.
Yeah. So anyhow, so I thought, well, that would be an interesting little point out in terms of
Any
enforcement.
may not have gone far enough out on Rancho, but we have a nice fifth wheel that you can pick up real cheap.
We see back in Missouri where I grew up, the philosophy is if you have old cars, you gotta have a lot of them. You never know which one's gonna run.
Are the parts interchangeable?
My wife calls that the museums when we put back there.
Oh. Well, scrap metal, I don't know what scrap metal's going for these days, so, so anyhow, yeah, so that would, be a couple of sites of information for the code enforcement.
So are we gonna continue, move forward? Is this
Yeah.
gonna be the plan? Is it, right? Isn't that kind of where
That's
we're at?
right,
kind of what I'm-
right.
Yeah, so I need the authorization, so I can start the design basically, and then we
Yeah.
can.
I felt that it was well thought out and.
Yeah, oh, yeah, definitely. But for me, I wanted to go cruise about, so,
Oh,
yeah.
that's good, that's
No,
great.
in fact, you'll see, I said, okay, you know, we
Yeah,
were
and
taking
then-
little notes and stuff.
I guess you need to mind a little bit about this, before we even do anything, design or anything, we have our field inspector that's gonna go out and do a full inspection of actually what's, like, he's gonna map out the road. And if he comes back and he says, wait, what are we doing here? Kind of like what you're doing right here, well, what we have the option to change that to
Okay.
another roadway at any time, but that kind of the guideline I'm getting right there. This is what, based on the data that we were saying, but we'll always do a field inspection before anything
Okay.
on that, so we'll have our field inspector come out, but I will get an answer even before then. And figure out on that road specifically, because it is odd that I would show up before, but there could be multiple things that you wouldn't see with just doing a drive-through.
Sure,
There could be, some rutting going on, like wheel ruts, so then you would never notice that if you were driving, and that would be a bigger issue.
right, yeah.
Other than that, but, yeah, there's multiple issues, but it's hard to tell without, I guess, without
Yeah.
seeing it, so we can double check that.
Yeah, otherwise, yeah, no, it's a great plan. It's something that I would recommend moving forward. It was just, like I said, I was just curious, so we just took a few
Great.
hours to just kind of
Oh,
went
yeah,
through that.
right.
But also to keep in mind if you have any of the residents here, and because I know you'll get a lot of bitching and complaining in general just about Sandia Creek,
Oh, yeah.
visually how it looks,
Mhm.
not how much it rides and whether it's in poor condition or fair condition, but just the visual aspect in some areas. So you'll have a nice clean area that's just been done, and then all of a sudden you have one of those. So, you know, so they're gonna ask questions about that maybe, so you never know. But anyhow, yeah.
I got a question for you and Dave. David, when you guys talked to Rancho Water District about Via Escalon and El Calamar, I think there's a clause in them, they have a 4 foot wide or so trench down along kind of the westerly edge or northerly edge. But they have a responsibility to pave or slurry out to the center line.
They're gonna repave they're gonna grind and then overlay it from the center line almost to the edge of the street.
Yeah, so in essence, what we'll have is half of a street that's newly
Okay.
paved and half of a street that, according to this, was in good condition, 5 years ago. But if Ron's gonna go out and take a look at some of these, I'd like him to go up there and take a look at it if he can, because the half they're not gonna pave is now starting to alligator up pretty badly. That big equipment they got in there is crushed it. And I think they'll go in and probably patch that and grind and do some of that. But now you're gonna end up with kind of half of the street that looks beautiful and then half of the street
Yeah.
that needs at least maybe a slurry or something or that. So maybe we could, get Rancho to do the whole thing for us somehow, or?
I doubt if they'll do the whole thing, but typically what we do is we make them repair anything that they damage. And so it's up to you to go out there and say, hey, this wasn't all alligator crack like it is now. So these sections you got to fix. And then typically we go back in a year or two and we redo the other side of the street as part of our CIP. So then the whole street looks fine. But we're getting a free half a street and we're only going to have to then fix the other half down the line.
But is it possible to just get a hold of the water district people and tell them we want the whole thing, the entire width on both sides, repaired and overlaid? Because I'll tell you when I just heard this recently from Steve. There are cities, those hard-nosed, tough guys that won't let you do that. You gotta, if none of this repaving half the street, you repave it all.
Yeah, all or nothing.
Yeah. And they just, that's, if the water district wants to do that repair, that's the cost of doing business. Can we play that game here?
Well, typically the utility companies don't do that. And I had to argue to get half the street. You can always ask.
Okay.
Cities like Anaheim do what you say, but they actually have an ordinance that says that. And all that was given out to utility companies well ahead of time. Typically, we would like to put out a thing saying, if we have done work on this street, you can't touch it for 5 years. If you do, you have to pave the entire street. You know, that's something that, yeah, we need something like that out there.
Let's see. Yeah, because I mean, like Westlake Village, they knew hard nose. I was one of you guys engineers. I mean, you cut in our street, you make it look
Right.
fixed, you know, and that was just a given. And the same thing with Anaheim, we would send notices out saying we're overlaying these streets. We're giving you 1 year because we had a 3-year moratorium then. We don't repave the street that comes in and tears it all up. So we just wouldn't allow it.
Yeah.
And they're used to it. They do a lot of grumbling, but
Yeah, well, a lot of cities are going to five years now.
you know, financially. I don't know.
With those comments and Debbie's comment earlier about having folks here at the meeting that they have vested interest in some of these, do we have a standard process in the district for evaluating a property owner request or comment? If somebody comes in and says, well, why are you doing that street? Mine's got a hole in it.
Well, you know, that's really what I believe. I wasn't here, but I believe that's why the district went with paver. Because I think they were having a lot of problems with that. And this way you can at least scientifically take out the book, the section they're talking about.
Okay.
And then the comparison to, well, how come he got his bottle filled? You know, we have some data to start working with. It still doesn't, you know, they want their pothole filled, you know.
Yeah.
But it's a basis for, you know,
If the
looking.
process is that we evaluate the condition of that particular spot against the priorities of the district.
Right.
The way they've been evaluated, it'll find its spot in that hierarchy of.
In theory, now if you're the resident, you're not gonna see it that way.
Yeah, it depends upon the, you know, the individual, obviously.
I mean,
but,
what can happen is a cul-de-sac could be in, you know, fair, good condition. And because there's hardly any cars on it, it's not gonna degrade for 10 more years.
Right.
And an arterial could degrade in a year or two if it's got a heavy amount like Sandy Creek or something like that. So it could change really quickly, you know, so.
But mostly for the residents, you know, this.
Everyone knows fair.
Yeah, and we, before COVID, this was available. We had, so people are starting to see, you know, visually and starting to understand, but you'll still have people that are relatively new or this particular agenda item caught their attention and they're going to show up, you know, because they're asking themselves all these questions. So all this stuff now has become extremely helpful for people to see that it's just not something we pulled out of a hat.
Not random. Yeah.
To do. So there is science behind it. So, yeah, so that's made a big difference.
Okay, how about I'll shoot you the location and stuff like that, and then you guys can just look at it.
If you wouldn't mind, I don't know, you know, you can pull a rabbit
So
out
that you
of
can
the hat.
maximize, you know, if you-
Well, yeah, it doesn't hurt.
We fight to the center line because if they only go halfway, then, you know, you could hit a a tire mark and everything, and that causes real degradation of the roadway. So at least the center line, we're safe on that. But
So
special required.
just from an aesthetic purpose and also, of course, to protect. So do you ever do an asphalt grind and overlay on half and then a slurry seal on the other half?
Oh, yeah, we do that all the time. Just, anytime you do a full repair, you have to do at least a 2 foot, like just grind and overlay and be sorry. But yeah, sometimes they do that, if it's not necessary. You know, if we're widening a street or something, we'll And we don't want it to look patched up. We can do a slurry seal halfway or whatnot, but, anytime you're changing grade, that's when you do the full patch, basically, so.
What does slurry seal cost like square foot nowadays?
Top of my head,
like $2?
it was around like $150, $2, but it was, I'd have to look at the exact numbers,
Well, slurry seals are, a couple of years ago, were down to 20 cents a square foot. And now they're up to like 50 cents a square foot.
50 cents a square foot. So this is 1,600 feet long cul-de-sac with about, roughly 10 foot wide, so maybe 16,000. So you're saying it might be like $8,000 if we were to slurry seal it?
If you combine it with some big project.
Oh,
It is
yeah.
Yeah, if you're gonna stand alone, then it'll be more.
So with this project, you could add that on or something to get the economies of
So maybe,
scale.
maybe that's another option.
That's an
is
option.
Get them to
Let's
negotiate,
see if we can get them to grind for the whole thing.
grind the whole
They,
thing.
they've got into the center
Not
line.
wholesale for.
Let's see if
for
we can
slurry
get them
seal.
further because they cracked up the other side or something like
Yeah.
that.
We haven't
Maybe
had
they'll
pictures
split
of
the-
before. We haven't had pictures of before, but that would be good to tell them, hey, this is a perfect road.
We didn't take pictures before, but I, Justin and I both know that this one section is about 300 feet long. It's crushed.
Yeah.
And it wasn't crushed at all. That road was in perfect condition from that respect. But now,
They're
and they're planning on
contract-
fixing that. But now they're taking 300 of the 1,600 feet that we want. So now we're down to only 1,300. feet.
Yeah,
I mean,
there
so,
you go.
It's like, come on, guys, just,
Yeah, well, their contractor will take photos or they'll video any street they're working on before they start, because this comes up all the time for
Yeah.
contractors.
yeah, he's probably got it. So.
So you can ask for it.
we'll
You
shoot-
can
I'll
argue,
shoot
you can
a
argue
picture.
it, say they did it, and then up to them to show proof they didn't do it. That's what you gotta do.
We can Arm wrestle for it. Why don't we just do that?
Contractors can be very vicious at times.
Shall I call him?
Yeah.
Say pretty please.
So here's where we're going with this. I
Yes.
have the finance committee next week. But I just want to, it's good. I've got to tell them this project comes up. It's my understanding that the financing of this is the detour route. That's first, right?
These
So the
are
whole detour route and that cost. And then what we have left of the 750 for the year is this.
Yes.
So if the bids come in high, and they might now with what's going on. And let's say the bids for all that come in $1 million,
Mhm.
this gets chopped first, right?
That's all,
Yeah.
yeah, that's all.
Yeah.
Anyone's, your guys' decision, I guess, priority.
Okay, so that I think is the way, again, I'll present it to the finance committee, that the 750, the budget number is what it is.
Yes.
And so this is what the projects we'd like to do next year, and we'll do those. But we're beginning with the detour, because we gotta make that
Yep.
all done, over and out, it's all been patched, ready to go.
Right.
And then if for some reason we end up short, then you guys will have to take a street or two off. of
Yeah.
This one, not the
So
detour.
that's the
Right.
glass half empty.
Yeah.
If the glass was half full, what if we have a good competition because everybody's hungry to do
That
some
happened
work?
last year.
Yeah,
We
so
added more
do
streets.
we
to
have,
this.
the next 4, 5, 10 streets or whatever ready to go that we would add as a bid alternative or something like that,
Well,
Yeah, and we can add it, so
last time.
I'll do what we did in the last time, so we had two separate bid schedules, basically, we had our base bid, basically, which was everything that we included, like what I presented to you the other day, and that would be the quantities. And then we had a Schedule B or Schedule C, whichever it was, where it said, additional slurry if
Mhm.
funds are available.
Mhm.
We call it's measured in extra long tons, we say 200 extra long tons, what is that gonna cost? Now, if we come in and we had 750 and the bids came in around 500, and the second bid is around 200, we can just add that right away. the project, the contract, basically. But we can't know that until we get actual bids.
Right,
Okay, so we're gonna do it that way then.
right,
That's-
Right.
You've got a prioritized list and you
right,
go down the list until you run out of.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they call it the base bid is our priority. That's what we're definitely doing. And then you have the
Right.
alternate bid if funds are available.
Prices
So-
come in so good, we got to
so,
do all of it.
right.
So that, in that case, we have the price, if we do want to add it, so we don't have to go through any other hoops, we have to add the roads and let them know. If we didn't add that alternate price, then we'd have to go and get another price for that alternate slurry. So that's why we get that extra, that's just in case.
Yeah. And don't forget the 750 includes engineering and construction management and everything else.
Yeah,
Steve, you know, the class is neither.
What do you mean?
half
Dave?
full
You
or half
wanna
empty.
get paid?
It's big.
Good, yeah.
okay, right. Sounds like a deal. Okay. See, where are we? Anything else on that subject matter? We got it all?
That's all I had.
Okay, very good. All righty, Mr. Steve.
Hi. Yeah, traffic. Go ahead and hit the slides for now. If you mind here, Jessica. So we're going to be moving the CMS forward over to the opposite side of the street now and catch the northbound, the northbound intersection eastbound, Sandia Creek. Now, so we keep that rolling. These are some of the things that we did during the month, you know, getting the reordering of the counts and did some traffic control, site distancing, property letters, working on the speed limit signs and curb signs. Dustin's installing those as we speak. And we're working on this closure that we just talked about on El Calmar and Via Escalon. So update you on our 3 projects. The first one was the 2 requests that we received for always stops. Project number 1, when we did this back in 2018, when I first came on board 4 years ago, and the cruise was part of multiple number of locations that we were looking at potentially. And one of the things that made La Cruz a little different than all the rest was that it had 4 accidents in a 10-year period, where many of the other intersections didn't have that quite of an accident history. The map shows where we put in the 3 red stops were the ones that were existing, and the blue ones were the ones that we were considering. And you see how they're kind of nicely spaced to kind of break up those long stretches where you can get your speeds up. We took data and we did before data, and we showed that back in December, before we reopened Sandia Creek, we had over 2,600 vehicles and 600 of them during the peak hours. We got after data just last week, and we have 2725 vehicles a day and 662. So it's another, increase already. So what was bad before is worse now. The cruise is a little bit different in that it's a 2.5 mile long cul-de-sac. And of course, Sandia Creek is a little bit different than most arterials because we get new people coming down it all the time that are rerouting from the freeway. So our recommendation was that we should go ahead and proceed with the always stop at Sandia Creek and La Cruz. Then by comparison, we looked at Los Gatos and Carranza and we said, well, this one doesn't have site distance issues or delay issues or accident reported, anything like that. If you look at the daily volumes, the volume on Carranza is, 20-some% of what the Sandia Creek is. The peak hours, it's less than 20%, I mean, it's just the chance of cars being at that intersection at the same time is almost slim and none, I mean, there's not enough cars out there to do that in a day. So we're recommending that this request would be denied. We've already posted it for 40 miles per hour. So we've got the speed limit down 15 miles an hour. And we'll let enforcement know that they can start enforcing it in a few days when the ordinance that you approved last month is approved and effective. That brings us to project number 2, which is the speed limits. And this is just the history. So the signs are being installed. We've got Rancho installed and we're getting the Vaquero signs up. And so at the end of this week, they will be enforceable. And then we'll let the guys go out and do their thing. The last project that we're working on was that we were doing a little before and after study of what happens when we reopen Sandia Creek. Okay, so we collected data last week, and what we came up with was on a daily basis near the San Diego County line, the before and the after, you can see the numbers are just about 10% right now less than what they were before. So back in December. So there's you're going to see a street like Sandia Creek would fluctuate that much.
Mhm.
So that you could have that same 10% come back and be there, you know, so that's nothing to be alarmed about. You look at Avenida del Oro, and again, you've got a little bit of increase up there, you know, about a 10% increase up there. You know. Going on to looking more specifically at the detour route as an example, Buenos Campos took a huge hit. You know, it was having close to 2,000 a day and 1,000 of those coming through 4 to 6. Now you see got 260 a day with 118 coming through during the 4 to 6 period. And I would venture that most of those 118 people are people who live in the community
Right.
that are coming and going, you know,
Yeah.
stuff like that. Because we counted other places and they're not showing up at the other places, you know. And Tierrica, of course, the same because those two streets just, you know, directly connect to each other. So then we went on to look at De Anza and we said, well, what's happening on De Anza? Because before De Anza had, you know, more traffic than Buenos Campos long before the thing washed out or anything like that. And so we looked at December's count on De Anza and we saw that it got about a 1/3 drop. And so that was good to see that. And there's the number showing that they're not heading total of 364 ahead towards Cameron, you know. That's a combination of the Anza traffic and the Buenos Campos traffic together. So Cameron is, again, a decrease. And the only increase is Sandia Creek now. You can see just north of El Prado has gone up. That's where, so that all makes sense. You open the road, they're not going to be picking other alternate routes. We wanted to check out El Prado South to see if anybody is trying to shortcut or do anything down there. Oh, went one too far. There you go. And you can see we only got 65 cars a day on that street and only 8 during the 4 to 6 p.m. period and stuff like that. So not an issue yet, but we have it tagged. And then we wanted to also do is we wanted to sample the loose road at the San Diego County line. Because if we have that gate go in, the thought might be is, okay, in order to not have to pay for go through the gate, they might shortcut, go around, not shortcut, take the long cut, go around.
My dog verified the El Prado data for you. Every time someone drives by, my camera makes my phone ding. When my dog hears the phone ding, she barks. And the number of barks have not gone up.
We have to document that.
So there's science and then there's real science. So, all right. So anyway, like I said, we're counting San Diego County line at Duluth there too, because if the gate goes in, that number could go up a little. You know,
Yeah.
something like that. We might. So summary in all this, just to keep you guys apprised, we had 90% less traffic on Buenos Campos and Tierrica, 35% less on De Anza. Traffic's not shortcutting through El Prado, that we were making sure of that. And we noticed an 18% increase on Sandia Creek during the peak hour and stuff like that. So that's all expected. That's all we so that leads us on to our last request, which was we received a request to, hey, consider putting the turn restrictions so that people can't turn down Tierrica and Buenos Campos and that force them all to go on to De Anza if they want to go through there. And so we looked at it and we said, well, you know, let's wait until next month when we get some counts. So we see what happens, because we expected there'd be a big change. And so the counts are in. So here's the specifics. So now we kind of itemized it and said, okay, hey, you got 2,000 cars a day roughly on these two streets, and it's dropped down to less than 300 cars a day. 6 to 8 a.m., you see the numbers used to be in the 175 range, now they're down to 32 range, you know. And the PM, it used to be in the 1,000 range, 2018 range, so problem's going away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
looks like that.
Most
This is
definitely,
locals, 31 people in the morning or something.
Right.
Yeah.
This is locals. This is not
right,
people coming from Tanaha or whatever like that.
right.
So we looked at that next page and basically said, if we look at the numbers here, it's more balanced now than it was
Mhm.
before. It used to be a little more disproportionate. And I think that's what maybe the residents along Buenos Campos got used to, is that more of the traffic used to use De Anza, and now people, because of the detour, figured out, hey, go Buenos Campos is about the same distance and stuff like that. So you see the balance
But
here.
still, it's down 12, 15% of what it was during the detour,
Oh, yeah.
based on the slide before.
Yeah, it's still way down.
Yeah.
I mean, this is showing you that now there's a little more balance between the two streets.
Yeah.
That they're equally taking some of the traffic, 1/3, 2/3 roughly,
Yeah.
And so our recommendation would be at this time would be just to deny this request. And stuff, and then we can continue to monitor it and see how things go going forward. So that's my report now. Any questions?
So essentially, one stop sign you're recommending, and then the other one you're not recommending. Two comments for your report, because you're probably gonna do it the same at the board meeting. The stop sign map with the blue and, okay, that shows what was proposed 3 years ago, okay, which is fine, you need to know that. You need another one right behind it that shows what it is today.
Okay.
Okay, just make the reds and the blues.
Yeah.
Okay, and then could maybe Dustin go get pictures of those two intersections that you could have on the screen?
Sure.
It just helps, because you're talking
good
about
idea.
those site distance and blah, blah, blah. It'd be easier if everybody in the audience could see what we're talking about.
Definitely.
And you want to show with the pictures,
Just
if
what the
you were-
intersection looks like.
Okay,
Yeah, just,
pulling out of the side street or just the intersection from a distance?
we don't have a lot of room. Just Dustin can just
Okay,
photograph the intersection.
Okay.
kind of, Just so, they
all right.
can look up there and say, oh, yeah.
What was the data listed on those charts to show when the data was taken?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't notice it went
Yeah,
through.
it
Okay.
is on there.
Last Wednesday.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Right after the detour, for the road, Sandia Creek was open.
That was open March 1st.
Yeah, it was still pretty heavy, well, on a very slight sample. 8 or 10 cars that I saw had their left turn signal on as they came up to, Los Gatos,
Buenos Campos.
Buenos Campos,
Yeah, even though the road was open.
even though the road was open. So
We were
traffic just
I was
hasn't
out
been
there for
drained yet.
probably an hour trying to wave them through, because if I get one or two to go through, then the
Yeah.
next
Then
guy
the rest,
will
they will follow. Yeah.
So they were like, hell no, I'm going to the detour, I know that. All right.
But I know the folks that live up there would have been counting every car right after that.
Yeah.
They
It
were.
opened, and so it's good to show that it,
Yeah,
education's
that
happening
usually-
now.
you want to give it some time for things to
Yeah.
out. Anytime you make a change like that,
Oh, yeah.
word's got to get out.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Very good. Very good. Thank
Okay,
you
that's
very
the only
much.
two changes you had for the, okay.
I think that'd be very helpful. Nicely done. Thank you, Steve.
And so we'll
Okay.
go ahead and prepare the resolution for your board meeting.
Yeah, for the sign.
So that I'll work with Jessica to do that.
Okay, sounds like a deal. Thank you. Okay, H, field crew report, Mr. Wyatt.
Great. For the month of March, it's basically been continuing tree trimming, training employees, which at this point we're done with training and we're moving on with a regular operation as usual. Got some new safety information or implementation that I kind of came up with. I felt like there was a little bit of a void when it came to equipment specifically. And I wanted to look into something to help us prevent damage to vehicles, costly repairs and things like that we might miss. At other places that I've worked, we have these. These are vehicle inspection reports.
Uh-huh.
And basically what it is every time when you get into a piece of equipment or a vehicle, you fill out this report. It goes over brakes, it goes look over electrical and all those types of things.
Mhm.
Buyer's checklist kind of thing.
Exactly. It's a simple checklist with a comment section at the bottom, and then it's signed by whoever's operating, driving. And all it does is.
Sure amount.
Yeah, and so there's 3 separate copies that are made. So one can go to the office, one can go to myself, and then obviously one that stays in the booklet.
Right.
But it's just a good way to catch and prevent things before they happen, especially safety. So this is something new that we're doing now. These are in all the pieces of equipment, trucks.
Pretty good. That's a good idea.
Beyond that, just doing, as I said, tree trimming. We're out in Forest. I was actually out in front of your house.
Yeah.
Just the other day. And weed abatement, we're doing spraying. Just that time of the year, we're hitting it pretty hard as we can to get on top of it, because everything's blooming like crazy right now.
Tell me about it
Yeah.
last week. Oh, God.
My sinuses have been going crazy. Since that time of
I had a
year.
24-hour sneezing fit last week.
Same. So that's basically it. It's very straightforward right now. And then obviously at the moment, we're working on putting in some signs for Steve. We're also working with the contractor that's doing the tree trimming for us right now to offset some of the costs. We're actually doing the traffic control, saving us quite a bit of money at the moment. And that's, but I would say that the other thing too is that we had which I'm gonna end up actually bringing up during the board meeting with the contractor that was here doing it. We had a large asphalt repair that was on Sycamore Mesa. It was a really bad damaged area, and it was causing concerns with the residents, so it was something that we rectified. And we had that completed within, I think it was a day, something like that, less than a day.
I think at the last session, he had some security concerns out of the storage site for the equipment.
Yes.
Is any more issues with that or?
No, we've gotten a little bit, obviously, we upgraded, we've got some game cameras at the yard now, which are video monitored, you can check daily. One of them's hidden, in the gated section, so nobody can see it, and one's very visible. So that it's a deterrence as well as our camera, we have our camera warnings and all that stuff, and some privacy fencing. We haven't had any issues so
Okay,
far.
good.
So that's really good.
Yeah, definitely.
It brings me to another topic. We've been having quite a few equipment breakdowns. We have a lot of older equipment. The newest pieces of equipment that we have is our wood chipper and the skip loader. I'm sure you're well aware of.
I don't think Debbie was on the board.
Oh, okay.
Movie about the skip loader. No, so
Okay.
it
Yeah,
was right before that. So
Okay. So our newest piece of equipment is a skip loader. That's what we use to, right now, we currently use to grade with. It's a very limited piece of equipment, unfortunately. At the time, it was there to replace our old skip loader that they had and to go along with our blade, which is also broke down right now. Yeah, it's unfortunate. But this piece of equipment specifically is a little obsolete for what we do. It really only offers 2 services, and that's to move dirt with a bucket and grade. Due to its size, though, it's too large for what the district's needs are. It's too bulky. I'm sure you guys have seen it around. It was out front of your house. It's big. It's got tires. We just had to replace tires. And just the rear set of tires alone is almost $800. The fronts are about $500. It's very costly for what we don't really need it for. It's more of a hindrance than anything because we can't use it for what we wish we could.
we have one.
We have,
Old one.
we have an old one. So the old one we've maintained and we've kept it up as best as we can up to date. So it works. We do have one on hand that if we ever needed a skip loader, we do have one that works, it functions. So we're not without one.
Can I just, sorry to interrupt, for your background? This issue went on for like 8 years.
Okay.
The staff, Keith and Brock, kept putting it in the budget each year.
Mhm.
And the committee, most of the time, it couldn't get through the engineering committee, because they said, you don't need it.
Okay.
Whatever. Then, I don't know, a weak moment or something, the committee says, well, I'll take it up to the board. And then during budget, the board said, put it in the budget. Okay, so then, they said, okay, we've got it in the budget, taking the engineering committee and said, we want to buy this skid loader. So every year they kept taking it. And the first year I was here, we did it again, it's like a ritual. And the committee, the first year I was here, said, don't forget it. You know, it may be in the budget, you know, from 4 or 5, 10 years ago. But so it was appropriated, but there were,
Oh,
so when we ended up buying it, so finally, Keith brought it up, and the committee was Mike and Jim Brady. So sure, why not? And then went on the next week's board agenda. The next thing we know, there's a big tractor sitting in the driveway out here for $90,000. Okay.
okay.
So it's one of those, you know, the tractor we've got is good enough kind of thing. Was
Mhm.
the majority of the board year after year after year. So anyway, this issue is not new. And so that's the background. So now you can proceed.
And basically what I noted is there's definitely a void. I started off my career, I started heavy equipment operating when I was probably 10 years old up until now. It's what I did for the majority of my career, which got me here. And I started thinking about what the district could possibly use that would benefit the district's needs a little bit better. And I think that the best thing would be something that's everybody that works up for us, including asphalt companies and stuff, uses. It's a skid steer, a track skid steer specifically. It's smaller, it's more versatile, and as I told Steve, it's kind of like the Swiss Army knife of equipment, because you don't need a piece of equipment for each job. Instead, this piece of equipment can replace all of the equipment. It can be a asphalt grinder, it can be a tree trimmer, it can be a grader, it can grade, it can be it can be a breaker, it can be anything that you want it to be, whether there's over 2,500.
Sweeper, tree trimmer.
Sweeper.
All those things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it replaces everything that we would have at the yard. Not that we get rid of anything we have at the yard that's currently existing, but it replaces all of those things.
Mhm.
And it makes it so that we only have to actually service one piece of equipment versus the 5 that we have sitting in the yard. And due to the age of the equipment that we have now, it's becoming more and more obsolete. Unfortunately, it's just more costly than anything to keep these things alive. And we need something that can suit the district better, suit us better. A little bit of cost comparison just alone. I spoke just a second ago about that Sycamore Mesa asphalt repair job. I had asked them how much the removal would be if we were to do the removal, say we had a skid steer, which is what they used. If we were to do the removal prior to them putting down asphalt in that large area, it was a 1,300 square foot area. The job itself cost $17,000. That alone would have cost or saved the district about $6,000. Us doing it.
So the day before you basically do the prep or the demolition.
Yeah.
And then the contractor comes in.
Okay.
Yeah. And that, he brought, Dustin, when he came here, brought the skid steer kind of thing up to speed. And so we said, well, let's see, because he was used to using it. Let's just go around and let's do some jobs and let's see, how it works out.
Mhm.
And so it has worked out. And now you're thinking beyond that there's, like this, you could do those jobs too, because you'd have it in the yard, right? That's the idea.
And like currently right now, we actually have the contractor that we're using, they actually have, which I'll bring up pictures in the next board meeting. They actually have the same attachment that we would be using to cut trees, which is it's on a piece of equipment, and it saves endless time. I mean, we could mow the district in about, or mow trees and clean up all the trees in about 2 months versus the 6 months that it usually takes us to do tree trimming. It just leaves us more room to do more
Mhm.
permanent repairs like asphalt and things like that.
Mhm.
Attend to different matters. Because unfortunately, by the time that we trim one section, within 3 months, we need to come back and trim it again. It's a repetitive cycle that would be nice to get a hold of.
You saw the video we did on that, didn't you?
Yes,
The tree
yes,
trimming and
yeah,
how
right,
fast
right,
it
right,
trims the trees. in
right. So,
3 or 4 minutes, it could take
Yeah, it
out
was
a
done.
whole half a day.
Where's that video for Chuck?
We can get that out.
We'll send it to you. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
so it's
I may not have seen this particular piece of equipment, but I'm pretty familiar with the tool and like you say, it's pretty much a Swiss Army knife. The thing is you have to buy the blades separately.
yeah, the attachments are
And,
separate, yeah.
One knife's blade doesn't fit another knife very well in most cases. It's sized against the piece of equipment.
Yeah.
So I would encourage that we buy something that'll be usable for some time. The most normal thing from buying a skid steer is that the next one you get is bigger. Because you run into situations where you can't do what you want to do because that machine's too small or
Yeah.
something along that line.
Yeah.
So if we're going to propose buying one, which I would encourage because I know how versatile they are, I'd make sure we size it so that it's capable of doing whatever we need to do,
Yeah.
as
I would-
opposed to being a starting unit.
Absolutely. I probably alone probably have 9,000 hours on a skid steer.
Yeah.
And I put a lot of, there's a lot of data that we came up with, Steve and I. But the machine that we have it's a 259D by Cat. It's the perfect size for us. It's got the perfect horsepower, the output, everything. It would be what we needed to be for a long time.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have to go bigger, wouldn't have to go smaller. It'd be the perfect medium size.
Yeah.
But it does have the ability to operate all those attachments and all of that stuff very, very well. So that's something that I already looked into a little bit. It's some of the things too that I had with the skip loader itself, because of how we don't use it enough. I was telling Jim that a normal piece of equipment by this age would have about 1,000 hours each year. With a government agency using it, that's pretty normal, especially like Caltrans or something like that. They
Right.
clean it because it's running all year round.
Right.
Ours, we've had it since 18.
Yeah.
18 and we only have 450 hours on it.
I was gonna say, it sounds like
Does it have
that.
Does it have any value against purchase of a
Yeah,
skid steer?
yeah,
There you go.
He's reading your outline.
So,
Yeah.
so I with Jim's approval, I went and just got a quick, I contacted Cat and I asked them if we could get an appraisal on our equipment. Right now is the perfect time to get something like that traded in. And we had them come out and actually appraise it. They go through everything. They're extremely thorough. It's about an hour-and-a-half process of them going through the equipment and everything. They said specifically that it's actually, for the year, it's the nicest skip loader that they've ever seen. This guy that specifically has been doing it for 30 years.
okay,
And he was blown away that it only had 450 hours on it. So that brings me to my next thing. With all the pieces of equipment, or with all the attachments that we need, including the skid steer itself and the trailer to mobilize it, total was 130,000. That includes an asphalt grinder, a broom, bucket for grading, digging obviously, and a mower. And they appraised it at 60,000.
Wow.
So they'd be willing to give us 60,000. So out the door with all of that attachments, equipment and everything, including the trailer, it'd be 70,000. The skid steer itself is 75,000.
Mhm.
So even right there, we're ahead of the game.
Yeah.
So we have everything that we needed when it came to anything that would be going on in the district, including, like I said, tree trimming, asphalt, et cetera, grading.
Have you done an analysis of the period of time, given our normal use, that we would pay for that by eliminating rentals?
Yes,
Do the same work.
yes.
Again, he's looking at my outline now.
Yeah. We'll talk about that in a second.
So we just doing rentals just to test it out, stuff like that. And
Yeah.
we had like an average of $6,000 a year just in rentals. But like Dustin was indicating, you've got tires and oil maintenance and repairs on the other 5 pieces of equipment that you're having to do to have them ready to go, kind of thing that you kind of, that was another $6,000 a year. And then on top of it, the big ticket is we have, this skid steer can reach up to 14, 16 feet in height and knock down branches and stuff like that. They're 8 inches in diameter and just mulch it up like, like sawdust. So that's where we're spending, the money, with overhead type trees or anything like that, that this thing could just, go right through and.
Is that a blade or a macerator or?
It's a mower, but it counts as a masticator. It can cut up to like 7 inches. So it does the same as a masticator.
And we can save some $55,000 to $60,000 a year not contracting that work out. So when you add all that up, you're looking at like, $70,000, $75,000 a year in savings. And so when you're down the line, you just paid for it,
Right.
Yeah.
and then of course, 10 years down the line, you've got enough to do Ron's project.
Well, to be honest, it fills a void as well that we can do more, like, obviously, we're gonna be doing paving, our paving projects that are coming up. Now, there's a lot of times that they'll hire a subcontractor to come out and grind off all the RPMs and et cetera. That's something that we can now incur.
Staff would be capable of doing all the stuff that we contract out.
Go through the list of accessories one more time.
So it'd be a broom, so that's just for sweeping. Yeah,
Clean up there, yeah.
Bucket, and it would be a
Okay.
tooth, but we'd have the smooth edge as well that we can throw on there. And we have the mower attachment and an asphalt planer or grinder. Cold planer.
Have you considered a grapple?
Haven't, but it would be useful too.
Yeah, we getting down into the ditches.
You also get a sweeper out of this.
Yeah, that's what I do. Yeah, a grapple would be useful too. The nice thing is though, is they do sell the kits as well that you can just, it throws on over the bucket existing.
Yeah.
So you could always get something like that eventually too.
Yeah.
But those are nifty though.
Yeah.
Those are nifty. But the main thing is this would replace everything. Obviously, we'd still have those things at the yard, but those would be the backups to our new piece of equipment. And to be honest, they would probably be running 3/4 of the year,
Yeah.
all the time.
Mhm.
And it would be,
What is the maintenance factor in all of this? So if you have blade-like, items, what is the frequency of that?
Yeah.
And also like with your cars, I mean, every 6 months you taking in the skids, steer to be maintenance out, what is
Yeah.
that?
so CAT has it specifically laid out when it comes to equipment. They have all their maintenance sheets and maintenance data. And it's usually every couple hundred hours, you have your basic maintenance. It starts out with just oil changes and filter changes. And then usually around 1,000 hours, you do more like heavy things like do the transfer cases and things like that as far as changing the fluids.
Mhm.
And then 1,500 hours and et cetera.
Okay.
The one thing to remember as well is if we buy new, we get a 4-year warranty, which covers the maintenance costs for 4 years. Essentially, we
Okay.
wouldn't pay maintenance for 4 years.
Okay,
And the best part is that CAT has, out of everybody, CAT has the best service ability. And the fact that they're right here down the hill, we have a really good relationship with them, especially with the projects that we've had going on within the last year and a half. And it's right, like with our equipment we have now, our old mechanic, he retired. And trying to find somebody that can fill that diesel mechanic, but heavy equipment mechanic void is very difficult.
sure,
CAT won't touch our equipment because it's not CAT.
right.
So having that would be really nice, especially with how fast they can get to us in a pinch, in an emergency. There's a lot of benefit to that.
I wouldn't expect a great deal of difference in cost between CAT and John Deere.
No, I had priced it out, I compared the 259 to the 317, which is the John Deere's version of the same skid steer. And it's the same cost. The difference is that the John Deere comes out of Riverside. And although they do have decent maintenance, it's just a little bit more problematic because it's a company called RDO. And they maintain a plethora of equipment, not just John Deere. So it's-
Okay,
we wouldn't be able to get like a pinch, like, hey, I need help, or
Sure.
or piece of equipment broke.
sure, okay,
So,
that makes a big difference.
absolutely.
I think it's a good idea.
That's definitely. Sounds really good.
So this is kind of, in my mind, I was thinking of this like a pre-budget, this about the time of year we start talking about these things. Your deal that you kind of fell into with CAT, what's the time frame on that?
Thanks, I was just about to bring that up. So obviously, you know that there's a extremely large distribution error right now. That's happened during, or caused by COVID. So they are approximately 8 months out. Now, with talking to them, their recommendation is that we get the ball rolling as fast as possible if we choose to. What they tell you is as the worst case scenario, which is 8 months. But he said that that's not usually the date that it usually gets filled. It's usually sooner than that. It's usually closer to 4 months or even sooner. And in the meantime, they also are willing to give us a month of free rental, which essentially we could stretch over a few months, and we would still have our older skip loader that we can still use. We still have our broom and our basic equipment. We'd still be able to get by in the meantime. But it would definitely be something that we want to jump on sooner than later as far as moving forward.
If we have to wait 8 months, when do they want our skip loader?
So to get the down payment on it and actually get our names officially on the book, it would be right away.
So you'd be transporting our skip loader down the hill to them? It's
They
gone.
come pick it up.
Yeah.
It's
So
going.
we don't have, well, we've got a 1 month rental then.
Yes,
So
yeah,
then we
right,
got
right.
7
Yeah.
more months after that of rental.
But we still have the skip loader that already does
Yeah.
exactly this, because we still have the skip loader that we have at the yard, the old one. Just
Yeah.
still works.
That's right, we
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
have
yeah.
a skid steer. So
Yeah,
that's-
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So basically, we still have the same piece of equipment at the yard.
got it.
We wouldn't lose it. It'd still be there.
Right,
So we
okay.
can always use it.
The original one.
Correct. So we would
Yeah.
still have that, and then if
Get
we
the
needed a
coverage then.
special, and it doesn't just include just a skid steer, I could say that I want something bigger for a rental, and they'll get that to us for a certain amount of time, but
Mhm.
it'd work out.
Absolute worst case is you have to rent something.
Right,
here
I
or there.
forgot.
You got
I was thinking we had one already.
You got $1,000 or $2,000 for a rental, that comes out of your $75,000
Yeah,
savings. you know,
Right, right,
Yeah.
right, exactly.
So, yeah.
We have the equipment, we can cover it.
So the trade-in access the down payment and we actually write them a check when they deliver.
Correct. Exactly what.
It gets the ball rolling on this supply chain.
Great.
Yeah, that's the whole point is, and luckily we have something like that, because a lot of people don't, so they'll put down a small deposit.
Yeah.
But because we have that, that's what he was telling me too, they can't really tell you that, but
Right.
because of what a large deposit we put down, we're on a priority list, we're a lot higher than everybody else, because we're still getting paid for it.
Sure.
So, and they look at us also, that we're a government agency, they know how it works with, I mean, they already give us those discounts and stuff like that, just because we are a government.
And we need to get one before the requirement for an all-electric.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not sooner than you think.
Wait a minute, we still gotta deal with the organic waste collection.
Yeah.
Before we talk about that.
I'm loading up on steel equipment right now.
Wow, it sounds like an, we can't, let slide by here.
You definitely see it around a lot. It'd be, like I said, it'd be something that would be pretty much
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Such a vertical is up. You will be back to ask for other attachments though.
dog.
You might as well get them at the get-go.
With the savings. We come with the
Exactly. Oh,
savings.
Yeah,
Well, if we, it sounds like the inclination of the committee is that it's a good idea.
Yes.
It just makes good business sense. I mean,
does.
you're,
Yeah. That's a great
you're
offer.
capable of doing things much more quickly when the equipment's sitting there and you just step in it and go
Yeah.
do the work. As opposed to,
Well, and that's the thing too, is if I'm doing let's say I was doing an asphalt grinding job, I can put both pieces of, I can put the broom and I can put the asphalt grinder on the trailer and take it with me. Now I've got 2 pieces of equipment. Or I can bring the bucket also. Now I've got 3 pieces of equipment. I've got a loader, a sweeper and a grinder.
Mhm.
You know, it's versatile.
Well, I was thinking it was step through the budget process. I hadn't really thought, I heard your deal a couple of weeks ago or whatever you were negotiating.
I have one question for you. Does this include, we talked at one time about possibly getting a trailer to pull it?
Yeah.
Instead of driving it all over the streets, is this?
Yeah,
Yeah,
So this includes.
this includes a
Includes a
trailer.
trailer.
Yeah, that's what I put down here.
That's great.
so I guess
that's a good deal.
Yeah,
if
that
you,
is.
if we wrote it up, rather than you in your report kind of bringing the board along, we're considering this, blah, blah, blah. Maybe we just write it up and have a resolution there. I'd have to put it on the agenda.
Yeah.
I think they're generally aware that we've been, well, we know about the red tape.
Obviously, we've got to go through the finance committee
Mhm.
evaluation of it as well, but from an engineering committee standpoint, I think we're prepared to make a recommendation, go
I
forward.
am,
Okay,
and
then
in
we'll
fact,
raise it.
you know, then in fact, I mean, if he can get them to also, I mean, put this on paper.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
You know,
yeah, we got
Put
it.
Yeah,
this
I
on
have
paper
already.
for, you know, for the finance committee, you know.
Yeah, and they're
Right.
next Tuesday. I got a whole
Yeah.
week.
I actually already have that paperwork.
Okay, yeah, because I just wrote down, you know, what it's going to include and the trailer and the buyback on the 60K and so forth, and the maintenance, you know, looking at all of that, 8 months, free rental, you know, everything on there. So
Yeah,
Robert
okay.
and Paul have a, I mean,
But
it's
now
a
I'm
hell
gonna
of a
have to
deal.
put it on the agenda tomorrow, you know, but I'll do that. And then, you know, Robert is aware of what we've been.
Well,
thinking about,
in the
so.
past, you showed, you know, on the screen here, you
Right,
know,
that's
yeah,
right.
I'm sure
Yeah.
you've seen it.
yeah, that's, yeah.
So, yeah.
That was last year,
Yeah.
last year, yeah.
But we've
Yeah.
talked to him about it as far as the rentals, and kind of what, you know, we're thinking. So, yeah, I don't think there'll be any
I
problem
mean,
there.
it's a hell of an investment, yeah.
Okay, so you're gonna have to get all that paperwork to me right away.
Sure thing.
And maybe, like a little staff report, all the detail.
Do purchases of equipment like this, where do they fall in the budget as far as the road work that we've talked about here? Is capital equipment a part of the working budget for
Yes,
repairs?
and, the resolution will probably amend the current year's budget. And I'm gonna talk to Teresa, but there's extra, like this, the story I was telling you about, they kept turning it down, then they voted it in.
Right,
And then they wouldn't buy it. So there was an appropriation. I think, we may have some past appropriations for
you
equipment.
mentioned, yeah, you mentioned it to me in the
Kinda what it was.
past,
I
last
think we
year,
do.
yeah, right,
I don't,
yeah,
all that's all.
yeah, just, yeah, but I know you brought it up before, so.
There's capital monies around. Just like, you know, all this repainting and new furniture and all that stuff. That was an appropriation for 2 or 3 years. You know. So I'll check, but we'll get that squared around, and get it into the resolution. But will it affect the day-to-day operations and the budget, that sort of thing? No.
No.
Because it comes out of a whole different fund.
Fun, right. Okay. Very good. Nice
So you'll
to meet
get to keep your salary in case you were worried.
Sorry, we spent.
I would expect Dustin to be kicking in just for. the
Yeah,
fun of it.
that's right. Yeah, I'll tell you, we're out of budget for your salary. We have-
Like an excavator, I told my son once, if he could figure out a way to mow the yard with it, he would. It's so much fun to drive.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, gee.
Dave looks like he's in the movie room.
Yeah.
He's sitting back, his hands- Oh, we can't hear you.
Rob, you did it.
We will though, have a nice one.
Hi.
We're gonna
Yeah, there we go. No, champagne. Come on.
Champagne bottle. Yes, there we go.
That's great. Very good. Anything else, Jim, Matt?
That would be it.
Oh, that was very nice job. Thank you. Okay. Anything else? I permits, division maps, et cetera, et cetera.
I would just like to advise you that today, Jessica is preparing didocumentation for the signs notifying motorists that the road in San Diego County, San Diego Creek in San
Oh.
Diego County
Yes.
is closed. Now,
Okay.
that has not happened.
Okay, right.
However, if they close it, you want to be prepared.
Mhm.
So they advised me that as part of their condition, County of San Diego,
Uh-huh.
is that they have to provide notice on our side. So Steve looked at it, I looked at it, talked to them,
Okay.
and we came up with 3 signs that, you know what, you do know the detail.
3 signs along Sandia Creek, one at
Okay.
Avenida Del Oro,
Three.
one at Carancho, and then one down at the line, San Diego County line.
Okay.
So 3 opportunities to keep telling them, you keep
Right.
going,
Right.
you're gonna have to turn around, come all the way back, and
Yeah.
give them the mileage, so we get an idea, that's 6 miles down.
What do the signs say again?
It says, Sandia Creek. I guess,
We try to keep it simple.
yeah,
So we got Avenida.
And these are standard reflective signs. like a
That you can,
stop
I mean,
sign.
you can,
And
nothing
it's
real
the same
small.
size as a stop sign. except
Okay,
we-
okay.
It'll be square, not.
White, black, the usual
What color did we get, Steve?
yellow,
yellow.
Yellow.
Okay.
and
And the
with
black.
black letters.
Well, he's looking
And
at,
the permit is they're paying us $300 permit fee, which is
Right.
standard, for each location. And then, we said we would prefer to do it ourselves and you pay us back rather
Okay.
than them having a contractor out on the roads and that's liability. So, we're using standard posts and the sleeve, right?
Right.
Yeah, okay, as any other sign that
Okay.
we have. And then, we will order the sign itself.
Mhm.
And they will, pay us back that cost.
okay,
And then I came up with a number, we calculated out about $100 an hour
Hmm.
for their time to actually put them in.
Right.
We're gonna go ahead and put the posts in now.
okay. Great.
And there won't be anything on there. The signs, when they arrive, we'll just keep them in the garage.
Okay.
And Steve was able to, through his contacts in Riverside County, get one at
Rancho Cal, just before you get to Avenida Del
Oh,
Oro.
really?
So if they really want to turn around, that's where we want them to turn around at the stop sign there, or if they want to go
Yeah.
alternate route, they can go down to Duluth or whatever they want to do, but this is the point that we want to catch them right away. So
Sure.
County traffic engineer agreed to do that, so
Very
we just have
good.
to give them the signs and they'll put it in.
Okay.
And this is a long, narrow one. like what we have
4 feet wide, 4 feet wide, 3 feet
Yeah.
high. And it'll say Sandia Creek on line 1, road closed in big letters. And it says San Diego County, and they'll say 5.9 miles.
Okay.
And all that is, so it gives everybody
Very good.
notice.
And then the others are 1.5.
Yeah,
miles.
yeah,
Okay.
5.6,
Okay.
3.1, 1.9, all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Alrighty, good. Any indication in terms of the gate?
No.
Are you still
But
talking
I've been talking back and forth.
with Alma?
Yeah, and hopefully by the board meeting or whatever, make sure that I see you guys will have a better date, but it's up to them because I have nothing.
Well,
to
we're
do
right,
with
yeah,
it.
it's the other
And
thing.
so, that's a work in progress.
I
I
know,
keep getting different times depending on
yeah.
how I ask the question. So my guess is it's gonna be longer rather than sooner, but I was a little worried a month ago to get what we just told you about done,
Right,
because I didn't want to set the gate up and us having people
Exactly.
U-turning all over the district, you know.
oh, you would have heard probably from Rick on that, if that were the case, he would have
Probably,
given you a
yeah,
heads up.
yeah, but
So,
So we have our changeable message board. that we can always put up there in
That's-
place. That
That's
could be
also
another
a
effective tool we
great
can
idea.
use if we
Yeah.
have an issue where,
That's a
Okay.
great idea. I think we should keep that in mind. I was gonna ask you something. I just lost my train of thought on. Oh, I know what it was. Is this something you're gonna mention in the board meeting next week?
Yeah, based on what's happening at that time. Oh, what I
Yeah.
just told you about these signs.
Yeah, right. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
But in terms of what the dates might be, hopefully, and
Yeah.
I'll probably tell Alma, I got a meeting tomorrow night, whatever, what's the latest?
Yeah.
And then,
Jim, what some agencies do is they actually go ahead and install the signs and then they just bag them. You can just take a garbage bag, a black garbage bag and bag it and tape it down. And then that way there, if they say, hey, we're
Ready
gonna
to
be
go.
closing the road Monday or something, it's just tearing off the bag and you're done.
what I'm told is, I just learned this, I think yesterday, is that there's a 15-day requirement by San Diego County for their signs.
Oh, okay,
Okay,
on
yeah.
their side.
Right.
Okay,
Before they can actually
I
close
guess
the road.
it's coming soon, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a good idea or not, since it might be on the agenda. I don't know if you want to encourage her to be here because the people will ask.
Yeah, I think she's coming, but okay.
Okay,
well, I've
just-
gotta call her, so.
Yeah, just reinforce that because they're gonna say, oh, does that mean the gates are going up when?
That's a good idea,
You know, so just so,
yeah, but good idea.
okay, so if you'll do,
Because I have to call her about,
Okay.
she sent us a check, so
Yeah.
I need to tell her the amount, so tomorrow
Okay.
or today, I'll call her
okay,
and say, oh, by the way, the meeting, blah, 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 and,
Right.
I just came from a meeting and the question came up.
Yeah.
When are you gonna be able to tell us?
yeah, would be then to have the presence here, so, okay, very good.
Also, I forgot, in your report, tell us about your new employee.
Oh, that's what I was gonna ask him, yes, I was gonna ask
That-
if,
That seems like it was years ago, but it was only a couple of weeks.
Yeah, Timothy, he's a PJ, he's doing great. Like I said, that's kind of why training us, it's now it's gone and done. He picked up everything really fast, so everything's working out really well. He's here early.
Really?
Yeah, he's here early every day.
Early.
Yeah, I'm usually here like 30 minutes early and he gets here about 15, 16.
what's the probationary period?
A year,
The year
and it's in the letters of.
of employment, yeah, okay.
But everything's going really smooth.
Okay.
Got really good team environment.
Everybody's
Everyone's
meshing
working really
together.
well.
So, and then how,
Darren,
Derek,
Yeah,
how's he doing?
Derek's doing really good as well. Definitely, like I said, they both have really strong attribution, different various things. But we definitely have a good team. Definitely, we can still do the drain projects. We can still all do all that stuff. We definitely have the ability and the knowledge to do all that stuff. And obviously our basic movements as well.
Yeah, and I won't go into this at the board meeting, but just here at the committee level. We've had a lot of change in our field operation.
yeah,
It went years, people were in those jobs 20, 25 years, 15 years, whatever. Nothing ever changed with the field,
Yeah.
And so, what I'm sensing and what we're hearing from the other staff members is pretty consistent, that good attitude, things like you guys actually come in 5 minutes before the shift ends, instead of, walking
Yeah.
through every day, everybody's reading a book or something and there's 40 minutes to go on the clock, that kind of stuff. It just isn't happening anymore. You don't have to say, get back to work, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they're very respectful, and so all the interactions are very positive that we're seeing here in this operation.
okay,
So far, so good, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely taken a 360 since I've been here, and from what I understand, it's like that way for forever.
Yeah.
It used to be pick a street, just go do something.
Yeah.
Now it's very deliberate what we do and very structured.
Yeah.
Everyone's good with the structure.
That's a good point. Steve started this, that I know what I'm gonna do on Sunday evening, Sunday evening, I think, oh, check my mail. And there's a list, and Dustin is now doing that. Here's what you're doing for the next 5 days.
Mhm.
And that's handed out Monday morning. And then I have a chance, sometimes I text, well, don't forget this, blah, 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 blah. And everybody on Sunday night, it's just kind of now become what we do every week. And that way, Monday morning, Bruce here, oh, here's what you're gonna do.
Right.
And, you know what they're doing on Thursday and Friday, and then it gets amended periodically during the week. But at least they've got a format, a structure for the week ahead. And it gives us something to,
Well, you measure by also too,
Measure by,
but
right.
really though, it's supervision and management's responsibility to ensure that folks know
right?
what needs to be
Absolutely.
done during the week.
That was never done here
Right,
before.
right.
It was like you said, oh, just go work out there for.
Yeah, no, and tracking and also in terms of support documentation, the errors that we made in the past with FEMA, so I mean, it's, yeah, a whole new ballgame.
Yeah.
And also performance review time or whatever it may be, those are the things that you're gonna look at to
Yeah.
make some big decisions about, so,
And that tablet is recording everything.
exactly.
Yeah, so with everything that we do, we have like, every project that we do, putting up the signs, all that stuff, every single thing is documented. Really, it's really positive, it's really good for me as well, just because it's good for everybody, but I mean, like,
Sure,
you have a lot of people that will say, hey, you guys haven't, or you guys trimmed over here, but you didn't do this, you didn't do it. And then I have the documentation and the proof
Sure.
of it.
Right in your tablet, in your truck.
Right.
Yeah, you-
right,
And I have it on my phone as well, it's great.
No, I mean, really the last 4 to 5 years, I mean, things have been changing significantly here for a lot of good reasons. So,
Yeah.
great, well, great job. Thank you very much. Anything else, gentlemen? Oh, we've done 2 hours of work here.
Yeah.
I got a lot done.
Yeah.
We certainly did.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I
And you
think,
know, it's getting busier right now. Things are going crazy around here. As crazy as the WCSD can be.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of stuff going on.
well, some things that
They're
are
all
totally,
hitting At the same time.
I know, something's totally unexpected, but,
Yeah.
but we'll work through those too.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody, thank you very much for your time. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Bye, Dave.
Bye.
Bye.